Thank you, Mr President. This motion notes that the United Nations Independent Commission of Inquiry, Amnesty International and multiple Israeli human rights organisations have found that the Israeli government is committing the crime of genocide against the Palestinian people. It also notes that the ICJ has deemed Israel's ethnic cleansing and occupation of Palestinian land illegal under international law and has ordered that states employ all means reasonably available to prevent genocide in Gaza. It also notes that under international law, South Australia can be held liable for complicity by aiding or assisting genocide or human rights abuses. It also notes that the Commonwealth of Australia formally recognised the independent and sovereign state of Palestine on the 21st of September this year, 2025. It calls upon the South Australian Government to review any exports of weapons and weapons components from South Australia which may be used by the Israeli Government to commit genocide or human rights abuses against the Palestinian people. It also calls upon the South Australian Government to divest all public entities, including Funds SA, from any corporation which may be complicit in genocide or human rights abuses against the Palestinian people, as we did with regards to Russian entities following the illegal invasion of Ukraine. And finally, it urges the South Australian Government, the Malinowskis government, to end all current and future public investment and subsidies for weapons or weapons components which may be used by the Israeli government to commit genocide or human rights abuses against the Palestinian people. Mr President, I think it's almost self-evident why this motion will be brought before this place today, but I have a few more words to add. And I start with words that are not my own. Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. They are not my words, Mr President. They are the words of the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory. Other words, Israel has committed and is continuing to commit genocide against Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip. They are the words of Amnesty International. Israeli authorities have deliberately inflicted conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of part of the population in Gaza by intentionally depriving Palestinian civilians there of adequate access to water, most likely resulting in thousands of deaths. Those are the words of Human Rights Watch. An examination of Israel's policy in the Gaza Strip and its horrific outcomes, together with statements by senior Israeli politicians and military commanders about the goals of the attack, leads us to the unequivocal conclusion that Israel is taking coordinated action to intentionally destroy Palestinian society in the Gaza Strip. Those words are from B'Tselem, an Israeli human rights group. Mr President, I think this is not up for debate. Israel has been committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. The United Nations, Amnesty International, B'Tselem and numerous other groups have found that a genocide is occurring. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, has found against Israel in multiple cases since South Africa first pursued their case with them in December of 2023, ordering Israel to take all steps possible to prevent the further killing of Palestinian civilians and to allow aid to enter Gaza as the occupying power. So if we know that Israel is committing a genocide, then we must ask ourselves, what have we, here as Australians, and in fact here as South Australians, done, and how have we allowed or supported this genocide, not only on a moral level, but also because of the potential international human rights law implications. Looking to Article 3 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, that reads that the following acts shall be punishable. A. Genocide. B. Conspiracy to commit genocide. C. Direct and public incitement to commit genocide. D. Attempt to commit genocide. And E. Complicity in genocide. Now, subsection E should be of particular concern to us here in South Australia and to this Parliament. In October this year, the UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, accused Australia of, and I quote her here, of indirect transfers by supplying components for arms used by Israel The F-35 stealth striker fighter program, key to the Israeli military assault in Gaza, involves 19 states. And Francesca Albanese notes that Australia is one of those 19. She goes on to say, despite litigation in the Netherlands, Canada, Australia, Denmark and the United Kingdom, all of which defended their roles, and some cancellation of direct exports, states continue to transfer F-35 parts, heavily used in the genocidal destruction of Gaza, and states have continued to grant export licences for weapons to Israel, to review and partially retain licences despite acknowledging concerns, for example, in the UK, Canada and Australia. Now, the Prime Minister here has told us time and time again that apparently Australia does not export weapons to Israel. He dances around that subject, Mr. President. He plays word games, semantics, all to avoid the ugly truth. No matter how you slice it, or the Prime Minister tries to slice it, no matter what middleman exports are going through, Australian parts are getting to Israel. They are helping facilitate a genocide. Mr. President, there are few people in the world who would know more about this genocide and how states are facilitating or supporting it than Francesca Albanese. If she can see that Australia is providing indirect support for this genocide, surely our government should too. I think the South Australian people certainly do. It is well past time that South Australians showed some leadership here and began to actively pursue divestment of funds away from any corporation that may be complicit in genocide or human rights abuses against Palestinians. How can we sit here after more than 2 years of this latest escalation of the occupation and not divest? We've done it before when the world was rightly horrified by the illegal actions of Russia in their invasion of Ukraine. The South Australian people demanded action from our government, and to their credit, the government acted, and the Parliament backed it in. The Malinowskis government made moves to divest around $60 million away from Russian assets, with the Premier being quoted in a press release saying, and I quote him now, "We cannot continue to invest South Australians' money in Russia given their disgraceful conduct in Ukraine, which we have all watched in horror." Well, Premier, South Australians continue to watch in horror as we learn the full extent of Israel's genocide against Palestinians. We continue to watch in horror as innocent civilians, so many of them children, try to rebuild their lives. And after 2 years of relentless bombings, we continue to watch in horror as Israel's illegal occupation continues, not only in Gaza but in the West Bank and across Palestinian territories. Yet, as we watch this horror, we are yet to see the same response from our Premier. This Saturday is the 29th of November. It is also International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. I can think of no better way to mark that occasion and to show our solidarity than for this state and our Premier to show leadership and finally divest and take a stand against genocide. I commend the motion.